We welcome you to a new space for formation, organized by the Salesian School of America. A space to deepen the great charismatic heritage that Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello have left us, the preventive system. On this occasion, the reflection is oriented towards the global educational pact and its harmony with our spirituality. For 2 days, we will learn about various pedagogical practices that show the path made in our educational works to carry out and implement the 7 pillars that Pope Francis has invited us to live. Prior to that, we will listen attentively to the illumination of Mother Yvonne Riungote, Superior General of the FMA until 2021. And Father Fabio Attard, who has served as General Counselor for Youth Ministry of the SDB. To begin, we will receive the greetings of Father Miguel Angel Garcia and Sister Runita Borja from the dicastery and scope of the youth pastor.
A very cordial greeting to all of you from Mexico, where I am meeting all the delegates of Youth Ministry of America. What does it mean to rebuild the Global Education Pact? Above all, according to the Pope, it is a commitment to transmit a mystique, to live together, to initiate processes of transformation, to build what he says, the village of education. Therefore, it is a commitment, but it is also the opening to the other as a foundation. That is, looking for partners, looking for diversity, respecting diversity, even repeating those words which we already know of, responding to the educational emergency. For so much commitment, openness to the other and fraternity. Recover, says the Pope, the grammar of the fraternity. Live with others and always at the service. In what context does the educational pact arise? In a context of rupture of intergenerational solidarity, says the Pope, egomania. It can even be said that we have lost the beauty of the human vocation. Another great important context is the technological times that are managers of great digital challenges and that also imply a great exercise of discernment. Another context is to educate the question, that is, not to lose the sense of the whole, still dedicate oneself to the great questions, to the great desires, as we do in the Salesian family. Another important context is to rebuild identity, rebuild ties, memory, perspective of the future, of my life with others. And another very important context is the environmental crisis, which is also, says the Pope, another crisis of a relational type. Therefore, commit to ecological education, be aware that everything is connected. What is the Pope's vision of the Global Educational Pact? First, the Pope thinks that it is a new way of thinking, of reconstructing the culture of encounter, of working with fraternity, and therefore, in an educational center it is important to educate ourselves together, act with the head, with the heart, with the hands, and therefore, when we change the educational center the world changes. And we are called to always listen to young people in our educational realities, and put in our social works in our schools and our parishes and our educational environments what the Pope calls the revolution of tenderness. What is the mission of this educational pact? First of all, promote education and society. Putting the person at the center, facing the crisis, as we said, environmental, relational. Educating to care for others, this is the first focus, education and society. The second focus is to think about tomorrow. Tomorrow demands a better today. Therefore, we must put ourselves in the best dispositions, in the best energies to plan in the long term. It is not for tomorrow, but to think about the tomorrow that is already there, but we build it today, educationally. And finally, the Pope reminds us that to educate is to serve, or to educate to serve. There are so many experiences that help us in our centers, such as learning and service, and many other elements of the curriculum, but it's important in our communities to educate for serve. I am very happy to be able to meet, even if it is through a screen, and I wish you a good meeting. Thank you very much.
Dear friends, I thank you for the invitation to address a few words to you at the beginning of this webinar. The Global Educational Compact, a brilliant idea of Pope Francis, is already in progress. At the heart of this compact is the awareness of the responsibility we have to educate the younger generations for the present and the future of humanity. This responsibility is not limited to the so-called educational institutions, but extends to all of us, because, as an African proverb says, to educate a child, it takes an entire village. An interesting element of this perspective of Pope Francis, always present in his speeches on the education and formation of the younger generations, is the consideration of each individual person of our younger generations as an active subject of his own growth and not a mere recipient. From the beginning of the educational evangelizing action of Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello, there has always been the certainty that each and every young person is important and is the bearer of gifts, not only for his own growth, but also for the transformation of the community and of society. Mother Mazzarello often advised the sisters to study the character of the girls so as to gain their trust and involve them in their formation process. I believe that we are truly called to rediscover what has always been the style of Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello, and what young people themselves continually remind us about, that they are not mere recipients, but are fully involved in their own formation and that of their companions. The challenge lies precisely in the trust that is given to them. Young people should be considered protagonists of change and therefore promoters of transformation. Pope Francis also invites us to unite our efforts in a broad educational alliance to form mature people capable of overcoming fragmentations and contrasts and of rebuilding the fabric of relationships to achieve a more fraternal humanity. It seems to me that this invitation reminds us of the reality of the educating community as a basic element that ensures effective educational action that responds in a practical way to the questions and to the needs of young people in a context of growing globalization and multiculturalism. Building an educating village also recalls environmental pedagogy. In the Salesian style, education is above all the work of an environment, a privileged form of formation in social responsibility. The Salesian environment is a clearly defined space rich in opportunities to increase the life and hope of young men and women. The Global Educational Compact is for us a confirmation of the timeliness and importance of Salesian pedagogy for every culture and at all times. We are committed to seeking new languages, new symbols, new styles, and new ways of expressing love and confidence in the younger generations, trusting in their ability to transform their lives and to safeguard our common home for the present and the future. I wish you a productive meeting.
To illuminate this day of reflection, we will listen to the words of Mother Yvonne Riungot, who invites us to look again at the 7 pillars of the Global Educational Pact, in tune with the preventive system. Sister Yvonne has a degree in history and geography from the University of Lyon. She performs various animation services in France and then as a missionary in Africa. Later in the General Chapter 20, she performs her animation service with General Counselor, later Vicar, and assumes the year 2008 as Superior General, until 2021. She currently collaborates in the Vatican, being part of the Dicastery for Bishops and President of the Union of Major Superiors Italy. With great joy, we prepare ourselves to listen.
Saludo cordialmente a todas las personas presentes.
I cordially greet all those present, and particularly those who have invited me to share my reflection with you. I thank you for this opportunity to express my interest, appreciation, and support for the topic assigned to me and to discuss some aspects that seem to me to be decisive in the implementation of a new education. It would have been wonderful to meet in person. However, even virtually, we feel deeply united since we are animated by the same educational passion that makes us vibrant and life-giving. In my reflection, I will focus on the aspects developed by Pope Francis in his masterful Global Compact on Education, highlighting how it harmonizes so well with the preventive system of Don Bosco, as lived not only by the Salesians, but also by Mary Dominica Mazzarello and the first daughters of Mary Help of Christians. The members of the two congregations have given themselves to God without reserve in order to dedicate themselves to the education of young men and women according to the charism they received, and motivated also by the insight of the enormous potential young people have in society. An educational charism is a privileged pathway to guide those who are open to life, because young people who feel that they are listened to, valued, and understood harmoniously develop their potentialities and become aware that in the light of the gospel they are called to be protagonists of a more just and caring world.
Más justo y solidario, que es el proyecto de Dios. La intuición de Don Bosco respecto a que se puede renovar.
Don Bosco's intuition that society can be renewed through the education of the poorest and most marginalized young people was prophetic and remains an ever-present reality. It is a pathway that we will never completely develop, because it is renewed and actualized according to the current realities, that is, the signs of the times. A special harmony between the Global Compact on Education and the preventive system. In a video message to the Congregation for Catholic Education, Pope Francis makes a wide-ranging and significant mention of Don Bosco's educational activity, affirming that it is born from his commitment to the most disadvantaged children and young people around him. His educational system is called the preventive system, and the motto that will guide all his activities of integral education is centered on forming good Christians and honest citizens. To this end, Don Bosco created a unique pedagogy based on three guiding principles. Reason. Let yourself be guided by reason and not by passion. religion. Everything is useless if God does not assist us. Loving kindness. The foundation of all education is the heart. This educational method has developed in an educating environment created by the quality of relationships and has become global with the expansion of the Salesians and Salesian sisters throughout the 5 continents. The growth of the Salesian family has effectively allowed the transmission of this educational treasure to a very large number of lay educators and to the young people themselves who dedicate themselves to the education of other young people in many parts of the world. An outreach not based on exclusion, but on inclusion, on the acceptance of every child or young person, on trusting every person regardless of his or her situation.
Sino en la inclusión, en la aceptación de todo niño, niña o joven, en la confianza en cada persona, independientemente de su condición. Una extensión abierta a muchos contextos.
An outreach open to many multiple religions and multicultural contexts in order to share common values based on the dignity of the human person and on the building of a society with more solidarity and fraternity.
El Papa Francisco, desde su magisterio pontificio,
Pope Francis, from his pontifical magisterium, has not only alluded on numerous occasions to the importance of education and of the education promoted by Don Bosco in his preventive system, proposing it as a model, but he has also wanted to offer a concrete vision of his thought through a global educational compact structured on 7 pillars that he considers fundamental in education.
Fundamentales en la educación. Nos recordamos que el Papa Francisco dijo claramente en un congreso internacional sobre la educación que la alianza educativa no existe más, que se ha roto la alianza educativa y que hay que rehacerla. Me parece muy importante tomarlos en consideración, estos pilares, estos 7 pilares del pacto educativo. Lo sabemos, pero siempre nos va bien el recordar.
It seems to me very important to take them into consideration precisely in order to discover how they are in harmony with the preventive system of Don Bosco and also to evaluate the specific contributions of Pope Francis in this regard. To make human persons the center of every educational process, both formal and informal, in their value and dignity, and in their capacity for relationship with others and with the world around them, while at the same time teaching them to reject lifestyles that encourage the spread of the throwaway culture.
La persona en el centro del proceso educativo. Escuchar la voz de los niños.
Second, to listen to the voices of children and young people to whom we pass on values and knowledge in order to build the future together.
Sin primero escuchar a la voz de los niños, adolescentes y jóvenes. Fomentar la plena participación de las niñas y de las jóvenes.
Third, to encourage the full participation of girls and young women in education. Men and women are equal before God, and this is how it should be understood, and therefore this is how we should approach any educational endeavor. Fourth, to see in the family the first and essential place of education. Indeed, the family should be the melting pot where faith and the values for a Christian vision of life are reinforced, that is, love, solidarity, and forgiveness. For this reason, the message that Pope Francis gives us consolidates what history has always shown us, the indispensable value of the family as a transmitter of values that take root and expand throughout our entire lives. Fifth, to educate and be educated on the need for acceptance, and in particular to welcome and to be open to the most vulnerable and marginalized. A Christian cannot fail to be a good Samaritan. Jesus exemplifies this by his own conduct in the parable of the charitable Samaritan. When the whole world passes by, when no one is moved by the suffering of others or is frightened by it, the Christian is there to offer help and consolidation to the poor and the marginalized and the wounded. Sixth, to be committed to finding new ways of understanding economy, politics, development, and progress that can truly stand at the service of the human person and the entire human family within the context of an integral ecology. Seventh, to safeguard and cultivate our common home, protecting it from the exploitation of its resources, and to adopt a more temperate lifestyle marked by the use of renewable energy resources and respect for the natural and human environment in accordance with the principles of subsidiarity, solidarity, and a circular economy.
Salvaguardar y cultivar nuestra casa común, protegiéndola de la explotación de los recursos.
Regarding environmental education and radical changes in the current consumer economy, Pope Francis affirms that they will only be possible from an individual, social, and political ethical perspective that has at its core the dignity of the human person, the dignity that is born from the heart of the gospel and that acquires its authenticity in the living of the commandment, love your neighbor as yourself.
Esa dignidad que nace del corazón del Evangelio y que adquiere su autenticidad en la vivencia del mandato. Ama a tu prójimo como a ti mismo. El sistema preventivo de Don Bosco, teniendo presente el pensamiento educativo del Papa,
the preventive system of Don Bosco, bearing in mind the educational thought of Pope Francis, we will now dwell, even if briefly, on the educational proposal or initiative of St. John Bosco. Don Bosco's educational activity was born from his commitment to the most disadvantaged children and young people. His educational method is called the Preventive System, and the motto that guided all his teaching and apostolic activity was to form good Christians and honest citizens. 3 fundamental principles. To actualize his educational method, Don Bosco created a unique pedagogy based on 3 guiding principles: reason, Let yourself be guided by reason and not by passion. Religion, everything is useless if God does not assist us. And loving kindness, the foundation of all education, is the heart. This method became global with the expansion of the Salesians throughout the 5 continents, an expansion that was not based on excluding, but on the acceptance of every child or person, regardless of their condition or situation. With this same purpose of offering the best to his young people, it was very important for Don Bosco to orient his Salesians towards uninterrupted study so that they would be continually updated to face economy, politics, development, and progress, and thus be at the service of young people and of the entire human family from the perspective of an integral education. To safeguard and enhance our community home means protecting it from the exploitation of its resources, adopting more moderate lifestyles, seeking the integral use of renewable energy that respect the human and natural environment, and following the principles of subsidiarity, solidarity, and circular economy. To consider that education for the care of the environment and radical changes in the current economy of consumption will only be possible from an individual, social, and political ethical outlook that has as its axis the dignity of the human being, that dignity born from the heart of the gospel and consolidated in the precept of loving one's neighbor as oneself. Let us remember that human rights are born in a Christian culture with its transcendent values. History is a good example of how the propaganda that begins with discarding God, even if the focus is the dignity of man, ends in genocide or in the extermination of those who have different points of view. To face with intelligence and decision the fact that today one of the fundamental declinations of globalization is represented by the development of technologies and, in particular, by an impact perhaps more inclusive in the pedagogical field than in what is related to life online and to social networking. The management and use of this digital world raises enormous challenges in the educating process. In this regard, the internet and social networks are radically changing both the relationships between human beings as well as their desires and the very formation of people's identity, affecting different human capacities such as memory, creativity, the ability to concentrate, and introspection. Good relationships are fundamental in the preventive system because they are essential in the development of the human being.
Como un ser en relación a su imagen. Dios es Trinidad, es una comunidad continuamente en relación entre las 3 personas de la Trinidad y en relación continua con toda la humanidad. No podemos, en este contexto, no cultivar la calidad de la relación. Y no podemos no tener en cuenta en la educación.
In our educating mission, we cannot ignore the reality of new technologies, since they have a profound impact on young people. This reality requires formation and creativity, so that education touches the very heart of young people and allows them to freely grow and develop in today's world. In ways that up to now were unknown to us, the new generations are forced to live in a world of contradictions, because the time given to learning, and even more profoundly, the time given to personal maturity, is far removed from the time given to being online. Consequently, this often leads young people to experience a strong sense of frustration, a lack of self-esteem and self-awareness. Their question? Although I can almost always get what I want simply by clicking on the computer, why can't I just as quickly become an adult who is able to make important and responsible decisions? Psychological disintegration, due in particular to the aforementioned infiltration and abuse of new technologies, is indicated by Pope Francis as one of the most urgent problems in education, as mentioned in his message for the launching of the Global Compact on Education. Today, our attention is constantly attracted by rapid and multiple stimuli, which make it difficult to learn to live in silence. And this is particularly true with children and young people. The time and space necessary for young people to become familiar with their desires and fears are increasingly filled with continuous and attractive interactions that seduce and tend to fill every moment of the day. Moreover, such interactions nourish calculating, instrumental, technology, rationality of how, and not the rationality that responds to the profound meaning of things and life, rationality of why.
No queremos seguramente negar el hecho de que la web ofrece grandes oportunidades para la construcción del hoy y del mañana. Pero tampoco debemos subestimar su no neutralidad y, por lo tanto, considerar sus límites intrínsecos y sus posibilidades.
We surely do not want to deny the fact that the web offers great opportunities for the construction of tomorrow, but neither should we underestimate its non-neutrality and therefore consider its intrinsic limits and its possibilities. Technology, in fact, is often unable to see the mystery of the multiple relationships that exist between things, and so it sometimes solves one problem by creating others. In this incredible wealth of stimuli, we experience, so to speak, a profound dearth of interiority, a growing difficulty in pausing, reflecting, listening to ourselves and to one another. Today, there is also a tendency to positivism, that is, to educate in the value of eminent things, and this happens in countries with a Christian tradition as well as in countries with a pagan tradition. This does not introduce children to the total reality. Transcendence is missing. For me, Pope Francis affirms, the greatest crisis in education from a Christian perspective is this closure to transcendence. We are closed to transcendence. It is important to prepare hearts so that the Lord may manifest himself in totality, that is, in the totality of humanity, which also has this dimension of transcendence. Education with humanity, but with open horizons. Closure in any form is not useful for education. This is why one of the main difficulties facing education today is considered to be the widespread tendency to undermine humanism.
Dice Papa Francisco. Por eso se considera que una de las principales dificultades que enfrenta la educación hoy es la tendencia generalizada a la deconstrucción del humanismo. El individualismo y el consumismo generan una competencia que degrada la cooperación, ofusca los valores comunes.
Individualism and consumerism generate a competition that degrades cooperation, obscures common values, and erodes the most basic rules of coexistence. The current globalization of indifference and the throwaway culture also has repercussions on the relationships between individuals and peoples, as well as on the care of our common home and on the meaning of humanism. Political powers that are solely focused on results are like dictatorships that consider the person an object in a laboratory and have no interest in his or her integral growth. Those in power ignore people's difficulties, mistakes, fears, dreams, and freedom. This approach, dictated by the logic of production and consumption, places the emphasis primarily on the economy and seems to artificially equate men with machines. Pope Francis, in speaking to educators, affirms that they are well aware that today fear, rather than human beings, is a central focus of world organizations. In such a world, education is becoming more and more elitist. Education cannot be nominalist in the sense of transmitting to the pupil only the content of the concepts, in a way which does not complete everything that is human, because the person, in order to feel like a person, must feel and must think. He must know 3 languages that are so simple: the language of the mind, the heart, and the hands. Today, education must also face the obstacle of so-called rapidification, in which life is caught in a whirling pace, constantly changing points of reference. In this context, identity itself loses consistency and the psychological structure disintegrates before an unceasing transformation that contrasts with the naturally slow pace of biological evolution. Logically, it is this type of egotism that generates fractions that strongly influence educational action at all levels. We speak here of the division existing between various institutions and groups. Listed, they are generations, different peoples and cultures, part of the rich population and part of the poor population, the first increasingly rich and the second increasingly poor, men and women, economy and ethics, humanity and planet Earth. We are therefore urged to be open and available to the most vulnerable and marginalized. The Royal Academy of the Spanish Language clearly relates vulnerability to the risk of being harmed or injured in what is understood as aggression or simply a force of external origin. A person is vulnerable because he or she can be injured, just as a ship is vulnerable to enemy attack, or a certain species is vulnerable to the voracity of another. The urgency of assuming the educating mission from all the sectors involved with new strength in this important undertaking is clearly evident. We will stop briefly now to highlight, first of all, the role of the family. In this line, among the educational themes or approaches that Pope Francis addresses in greater depth in the encyclical Laudato Si and in the apostolic exhortation Amoris Laetitiae, the family stands out as the first and indispensable educator. In Laudato Si, Pope Francis affirms that the family is the place in which life, the gift of God, can be properly welcomed and protected against evil in an adequate manner. In the face of the so-called culture of death, the family is the heart of the culture of life. It is also the place of integral formation, where the various dimensions of the person are developed. In Amoris Laetitiae, Pope Francis states that the family is the first school of human values, where we learn the wise use of freedom. It is the sphere of primary socialization, where one learns to live together and to assume an integral ecology. The family, therefore, is considered in the Creator's plan as the primary place of humanization of the person and of society, and the cradle of life and love.
De manera especial en nuestro tiempo, urge promover a la mujer favoreciendo la plena participación de las niñas y de las jóvenes en la educación.
Especially in our times, it is urgent to promote women by encouraging the full participation of girls and young women in education. Gender equality is for UNESCO a global priority, closely linked to the organization's efforts to promote the rights to education and achieve its sustainable developmental goals. The global agenda for education recognizes that gender equality requires an approach that ensures not only that girls and boys, men and women gain access to and successfully complete different levels of education, but that they acquire the same skills in and through education. Despite the achievement, more girls than boys are out of school. 16 million girls will never go to school. And women account for 2/3 of the 750 million adults who lack basic literacy skills. Gender equality in education is not only a basic human right, but a necessary condition for a prosperous, sustainable, and peaceful world. Another theme on which Pope Francis expands is that of ecological and environmental education, which cannot be restricted to scientific information and guidance on cost reduction and prevention of environmental risks. The encyclical Laudato Si specifically dedicates a chapter to education entitled Ecological Education and Spirituality. In this chapter, the Pope emphasizes the need for humanity to change its mentality and ways of acting, and to this end, to rely on education as an indispensable factor. An awareness of the gravity of today's cultural and ecological crisis, affirms Pope Francis, must be translated into new habits. Many people know that our current progress and the mere amassing of things and pleasures are not enough to give meaning and joy to the human heart. Yet they feel unable to give up with what the market sets before them. It is also necessary, the Pope affirms, to create an ecological citizenship. Yet this education aimed at creating an ecological citizenship is at times limited to providing information and fails to instill good habits. Only by cultivating sound virtues will people be able to make a selfless ecological commitment. A person thus rejects self-interested pragmatism, admires the beauty of the world, practices responsible austerity, and cares for the fragility of the poor and of the environment. If we want to bring about deep change, we need to realize that certain mindsets really do influence our behavior. Our efforts at education will be inadequate and ineffectual unless we strive to promote a new way of thinking about human beings, life, society, and our relationship with nature. Otherwise, the paradigm of consumerism will continue to advance with the help of the media and the highly effective workings of the market. In the exhortation, Dear Amazonia, the Pope emphasizes the need for an integral ecology. An integral ecology cannot be content simply with fine-tuning technological questions or political, juridical, and social decisions. A sound and sustainable ecology, one capable of bringing about change, will not develop unless people are changed, unless they are encouraged to opt for another style of life, one less greedy and more serene, more respectful and less anxious, more fraternal.
Más que consideraciones técnicas, las cuales serán inútiles si no cambian, si no se la estimula a optar por otro estilo de vida, menos voraz, más sereno, más respetuoso, menos ansioso, más fraterno. Pero toda esta importancia de la educación en todos estos campos nos pide tanta reflexión, tanto discernimiento, tanta creatividad, tanta pasión educativa. Porque efectivamente la educación está a la base de todo. Sin una nueva educación no habrá un mundo nuevo. No existirá una nueva sociedad. Y pienso que como salesianos y salesianas, sea sacerdotes, consagradas, sea laicos y laicas, adultos o jóvenes, tenemos una responsabilidad muy grande en este mundo por el carisma que hemos recibido. Y el sistema preventivo quiere decir pensar en adelante, partir desde el futuro, no partir del presente mirando al futuro, intentar de partir del futuro, que nos pide soñar, que nos pide imaginar, que nos pide arriesgar, que nos pide buscar caminos nuevos. Y la pedagogía es importante en este sentido. Por eso es muy interesante que estén todos y tantos reunidos reflexionando sobre este campo de la educación. Necesitamos la fuerza y la luz del Espíritu Santo porque tenemos necesidad de una renovación profunda, primero en nosotras mismos, para dejarnos cambiar, para ser disponibles, para inventar caminos nuevos. Pero creo que es la vocación de la familia salesiana. Y los jóvenes y las jóvenes nos pueden ayudar. Porque si ellos no cambian, no cambiará el mundo. Me parece importante afirmar que la integralidad de la educación contemplada en el sistema.
I feel it is important to affirm that integral education contemplated in the preventive system of Don Bosco is in harmony with the global compact on education proposed by Pope Francis, which has as its aim to unite efforts worldwide in creating a broad educational alliance and to form people who will rebuild a more fraternal, humane society. The pedagogy of the preventive system has as its foundational objective the integral education of young people, starting from the family and continuing to an educational environment of closeness and trust where young people feel loved and accepted. Its motto, Good Christians and Honest Citizens, implies fundamental aspects also contemplated in the Global Compact on Education of Pope Francis. For Don Bosco, human promotion, formation to citizenship, and the centrality of the student in a family spirit calls for the pedagogical humanism of St. Francis de Sales, which presupposes a Christian vision and perspective of the sinful and redeemed human person and therefore highlights in him the wonders of grace. Pope Francis concludes the Global Compact on Education affirming, education, as we know, is meant to be transformative. To educate is to take a risk and to hold out to the present a hope that can shatter the determinism and fatalism that the selfishness of the strong, the conformism of the weak, and the ideology of the utopians would convince us is the only way forward. We are all well aware and convinced of the transforming power of education lived in community, in a network that is built in ever-widening concentric circles on the basis of a shared vision of the human being and of the society we want to build together. The challenges are numerous, but in a broad sense, they are a stimulus for a permanent and communitarian search, which cannot be lacking when it comes to education. I hope that all of us are animated by an educational passion as strong as that of Don Bosco and Mother Mazzarello. May it be a source of permanent creativity, and may it be sustained by an unshakable hope, because God has chosen us to collaborate with Him in this magnificent mission. To each and to every one of you, best wishes for your educating mission, regardless of your specific field of work. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Muchas gracias por su atención y les deseo un buen encuentro muy rico entre todas y todas. Estoy en comunión con ustedes, me pueden sentir muy cercana y con ustedes. Muchas gracias.
We appreciate the words of Mother Yvonne, and at this time, we will travel to some countries of our continent. Our preventive system and the experience of the Global Educational Pact have been concretized in various pedagogical practices, which we want to share with you. Some significant experiences have been chosen by the conferences and regions of our works, because they are an example of our commitment and adherence to the Global Educational Pact.
Al Pacto Educativo Global.
Confía en Jesús. Coloca en Él todas tus preocupaciones y déjalo actuar. Son las palabras de María Dominga Mazzarello, que las expresaba en momentos de adversidad, complejidad e incluso abandono total. Maín realizó una lectura atenta de su tiempo para demostrar que se pueden superar situaciones, incluso cuando la sociedad no lo permite. Asimismo, mostraba en su sencillez una manifestación profunda de fe. Estos aspectos y otros fueron desarrollados dentro del eje carismático en el taller de Madre Mazzarello, el cual permitió conocer y profundizar la real dimensión de humanidad y espiritualidad de nuestra santa. La experiencia de la enfermedad, el manejo de los sentimientos, la experiencia de la comunicación y su rol como catequista. Fue una experiencia enriquecedora y retadora, ya que nos deja con el desafío de continuar profundizando y revitalizando la presencia de Madre Mazzarello en los tiempos actuales.
Agradezco la propuesta formativa para educadores desarrollada el año 2021 con el curso formativo Siguiendo las huellas de Don Bosco Educador, que nos ha permitido a todos los miembros de la institución educativa inicial de aplicación María Auxiliadora conocer y profundizar la pedagogía de Don Bosco, interiorizar la espiritualidad y concretizar la asistencia y el acompañamiento de nuestros educandos. Hoy nos sentimos llamados a seguir poniendo el empeño de educar evangelizando y evangelizar educando, haciendo todo por amor y nada por la fuerza.
Ciclo de conferencias Webinar Mariano lo he sentido en el corazón. Fue una oportunidad para conocer el papel de María en la humanidad. He aprendido que María es puente necesario para acoger la Trinidad y que nuestros fundadores hablaron el lenguaje del corazón. Eso es un reto importante para todos nosotros como educadores, hablar desde la sencillez del corazón y hablar el lenguaje de Dios. Estoy muy agradecida a la comisión organizadora por este hermoso evento y esta gran oportunidad.
Para mí, los talleres formativos brindados en el 2021 fueron de mucha ayuda, no solo en el ámbito profesional, sino también en el ámbito personal, psicológico, emocional, espiritual. Las herramientas brindadas fueron de sostén en tiempos difíciles.
Entre mayo y agosto de 2021, por gentil invitación de las hijas de María Auxiliadora de la comunidad de Breña, brindé el ciclo de conferencias titulado Historia Salesiana Maestra de Ciudadanía, con el objetivo de sensibilizar a la comunidad educativo-pastoral de las distintas obras de la Inspectoría sobre nuestro pasado y el rol de la historia en la comprensión de nuestra misión en el presente, justo en un año pródigo en grandes efemérides nacionales y salesianas, los 200 años de la independencia, los 130 años de presencia salesiana en el Perú, los 100 años de la Basílica de María Auxiliadora y el inicio del año jubilar por los 150 años de fundación del Instituto de las Hijas de María Auxiliadora. Esperamos, tras estas 4 sesiones, haber contribuido a identificar en la historia salesiana ejemplos concretos de valores y actitudes que son necesarios para la vida ciudadana, así como encontrar nuestro lugar como hijos e hijas de Don Bosco en la historia nacional. Muchas gracias.
De un momento a otro, nos transformamos al mismo tiempo en todo el mundo, sin medir latitudes ni fronteras, en estudiantes pandémicos. Aprendimos a encontrarnos desde la virtualidad, aunque nos quedábamos en muchas oportunidades en la oscuridad de una cámara apagada. Reconocíamos que las injusticias nuevamente aparecían en escena, y la brecha tecnológica dejaba a algunos en condiciones de privilegio y a otros en un letargo educativo. Nuevamente, debimos exigir que el mundo sea más humano. Nosotros somos la juventud de juventudes, la juventud del Pacto y de la Preventividad Salesiana Mornesina.
En el año 2019 el Papa Francisco nos convocó al mundo entero para reconstituir el Pacto Educativo Global. En ese momento entendimos desde aquí, desde Bernal, que debíamos como comunidad educativa, desde lo local, singular y particular, responder con celeridad a este llamado profético, en el cual participaríamos desde el protagonismo y no desde la comodidad de esperar que venga todo desde arriba. Y allí estuvimos, atentos a lo que sería un nuevo Pentecostés educativo. Pero nos sorprendió la pandemia.
Aislamiento, cuarentena, contacto estrecho, protocolos, positividad, burbujas, virtualidad, COVID, hisopado, tapaboca y barbijo, Zoom, Meet y muchos otros conceptos fueron los que inundaron nuestra cotidianidad doméstica. Y en ese momento, sin darnos cuenta tal vez, iba surgiendo una nueva forma de ser escuela, una nueva forma de ser estudiantes y educadores. Sin percibirlo, dejábamos en el pasado de la historia una forma de ser para convertirnos en una respuesta innovadora, sabiendo que luego del éxodo vivido mundialmente desde la rutina hacia el aislamiento, no podríamos ser iguales. Francisco nos propuso estar todos en la misma barca, salvarnos juntos y hacer un pacto.
El Pacto Educativo Global nos llevó a revisar nuestras matrices institucionales. Pusimos de relieve lo adquirido sobre lo perdido, lo trascendente sobre lo sin sentido. Las ideas que teníamos previo al tiempo pandémico fueron perdiendo fuerza, se debilitaron y otras emergieron con firmeza y presencia significativa. La escuela del pacto dejaba de lado el dato, enfocaba las capacidades. Por eso 3 ideas centrales trazaron la nueva escuela: la escuela de la alianza, de la reconstrucción, el arte, la filosofía y la ecología.
Poner a la persona en el centro es dar respuesta a la exhortación antropológica que el Papa Francisco nos anima desde el Pacto Educativo Global. Es ser capaces de aceptar, amar, recibir y convertir la realidad, fundamentalmente desde la profundidad del arte. La escuela transita los senderos de la persona que habita la centralidad, especialmente en las aulas, los patios, las diversas edades. El arte, en todas sus expresiones, es para nosotros la nueva metodología educativa preventiva. Es el vehículo entre el interior y el exterior.
La vivencia de Madre Mazarero en Mornés es para nosotros, como comunidad educativa, el sentir y el latir de nuestras acciones y reflexiones. Comprendemos que la asistencia salesiana, mornesiana, nos anima a tejer y bordar desde la periferia existencial hasta lo singular de cada estudiante, llamándonos y reconociéndolos por su nombre, caminando con ellos su existencia más profunda como expresión de su centralidad. Aquí en Bernal deseamos asumir el lado femenino del carisma salesiano, entendiendo que es Maín quien nos propone, como dice el Pacto Educativo Global, generar procesos educativo-pastorales que den visibilidad y protagonismo a niñas y mujeres.
Y debemos bucear con el oxígeno que nos dieron nuestras familias y la escuela. Nos enredamos con preguntas que muchas veces no son nuestras, ni deseamos que lo sean. En este tiempo crítico de violencias extremas, buscamos el equilibrio entre lo ausente y lo presente. Por eso queremos pactar, por eso buscamos desprendernos de aquello que nos ahogue, que nos quite la esperanza.
La filosofía de nuestra propuesta educativa, presente desde los más pequeños hasta los más grandes, es el motor para la consolidación de los aprendizajes, es el andamiaje para lo significativo de la trayectoria educativa y el gran ecualizador de la vivencia del sistema preventivo en nuestra comunidad. La filosofía en los nuevos paradigmas políticos, económicos y sociales nos permite reinterpretar la consigna de ser en el mundo y para el mundo buenos cristianos y honrados ciudadanos.
Por la ley de voto joven, en Argentina, a partir de los 16 años, los jóvenes pueden elegir las autoridades nacionales que gobiernan el país. Desde ese desafío democrático, buscamos desde los espacios curriculares estudiar nuevas formas de reflexión política desde la vivencia concreta de las nuevas generaciones, presentes en nuestra comunidad, contemplando y conceptualizando con los estudiantes un paradigma democrático que refleje los valores salesianos. Por eso, en las elecciones primarias del 2021, politólogos, analistas de Big Data, asesores de campaña presidenciales trabajaron junto con los estudiantes en torno a la ley del voto joven y ondando desde una mirada filosófica la responsabilidad ciudadana.
Escuchar el clamor de la tierra y el clamor de los pobres nunca fue tan difícil como en estos tiempos. En este mundo del ruido, del estruendo, de la explosión, del like, del aparentar y disimular. Nuestro compromiso con la creación nos lleva a tomar decisiones en orden a la alimentación, al consumo, a la austeridad. Somos la generación de los reclamos ambientales, de los pedidos de justicia por ecocidios sin freno, de las marchas virtuales. Nuestro interior desea paz, desea vivir una y otra vez una verdadera conversión ecológica.
La ecología es el rostro visible de este tiempo educativo. Es el desafío y el camino. Asumir el clamor de la tierra y de los pobres es transitar la transformación educativa hacia una vivencia ecosocial. Ser una comunidad Laudato Si implica, entonces, formar una nueva ciudadanía sensible al latir de la tierra, al sentir de los pueblos y sus historias desde el origen, al cuidado de las raíces y tradiciones. La multiculturalidad es el nuevo entramado social para comprender e innovar, poniendo en el centro de todo proceso educativo a la persona.
La misión educativo-pastoral de la Escuela Salesiana requiere la construcción de una comunidad educativa caracterizada por el ambiente familiar, la participación y corresponsabilidad de sus miembros, la apertura, el diálogo y el compromiso con el medio sociocultural circundante y la inserción en la iglesia local. La acción educativa encuentra en los valores del Evangelio el fundamento para la maduración de la libertad y la responsabilidad, la solidaridad y el servicio, el eje en la búsqueda de identidad y sentido, una guía iluminadora para la formación de la conciencia moral, un modelo para la autenticidad del amor y una motivación trascendente para la dimensión social y política de la caridad.
En el 2018, el Papa Francisco quiso escuchar las voces de los jóvenes de todo el mundo, en un ambiente sinodal. Él nos decía que la juventud no es algo que se pueda analizar en abstracto. Es más, la juventud no existe. Lo que existe son los jóvenes con sus vidas concretas. En el mundo actual, lleno de progresos, muchas de esas vidas están expuestas al sufrimiento y a la manipulación. Esas vidas concretas son las que recibimos y acogemos en nuestra escuela. Es la vida como viene, donde el sistema preventivo, en comunión con el Pacto Educativo Global, nos anima para la formación de líderes socioambientales, filosofía, arte y ecología para una ciudadanía enraizada en la espiritualidad, para una comunidad responsable de los hechos sociales y para una aldea capaz de hacerlo todo por amor.
Fórum Salesiano.
Salesian Forum on the Best Practices. This is an important national event, bringing together students, educators, and administrators from all the Salesian schools in Brazil. This forum aims to engage its participants in the knowledge and practical application of the Global Compact on Education, in view of being committed to an education founded on the principles of a new humanism for the benefit of future generations. The Salesian network of schools in Brazil can best be described as citizenship, youth empowerment, critical reflection, and active participation, because networking transforms the world. Join us. The Global Compact on Education is a commitment for each and every one of us. The Salesian Network of Schools in Brazil, in partnership with the Salesian Network of Communication, conceived and developed the first Salesian Forum for the Global Compact on Education on June 17th and 18th, 2021, with the intention of taking up the stimulating invitation of Pope Francis in favor of a global alliance for education. The Pope proposes this compact because the world is going through great transformations, and to face them wisely, it is necessary to form mature people who are talented, work in solidarity, and are willing to build a more peaceful, just, and fraternal humanity. That is, people who favor an education that forms people for humanism in solidarity. Therefore, this Alliance for Education goes beyond nations, religions, churches, cultures, and governments, and is centered on the understanding that education is a common good and that it is also a universal right. Therefore, as a Salesian network, we are committed to the rebuilding of the Global Compact on Education, assuming and renewing renewing our passion for an emancipating education that is open, inclusive, dialogical, and founded on the principles of an integral formation for the good of future generations. Our forum was attended by 1,275 people and had 1,502 access points, that is, from our 108 schools. Each one could register 17 people, 8 educators and 9 students. Doing this, we were able to give a voice to educators to learn more about their aspirations, their commitment, and also their activities, but above all, to give a voice to the children, teenagers, and young people to hear their dreams and also to learn from them what we can do so that education contributes to building a better world. It was an exciting experience that filled our hearts with joy and happiness in seeing so much willingness in favor of building an education that is willing to seek solutions to the great problems of humanity. This is what we now want to speak to you about in more detail. How did we prepare for the Forum on the Global Compact on Education? We had an extensive participation and a strong commitment on the part of the local school teams. To achieve this, a web page of the event was created with study materials. These materials were the guidebook, Building the Global Compact on Education, the e-book, Educommunication from the Global Compact on Educational Perspectives, and the Global Compact on Education Dictionary, which served as a preparation and study material for the forum. Schools were also invited to share their best practices related to the Global Compact on Education that they had been developing in their local realities. With great joy, we received 55 files of best practices, which were analyzed based on the series of criteria, relation of the practice with the Global Compact on Education and its association with educommunication, participation and engagement of the educational pastoral community, the scope of the practice, and the relevance of results achieved with the practice. And 5 best practices were selected from the 55 received, which were presented on the first day of the forum.
Com base em alguns critérios: relação da prática com o Pacto Educativo Global, a aproximação com a educomunicação, a participação e o engajamento da comunidade educativo-pastoral, a abrangência dessa prática e a relevância dos resultados alcançados com a prática. E foram selecionadas 5 práticas dessas 55 recebidas que foram apresentadas no primeiro dia do fórum. As escolas também foram convidadas.
The schools were also invited to make videos starring children, adolescents, and young people. The question for the elaboration of the video was, based on the Global Compact for Education, what is your dream for yourselves and for all the children of the world?
What do we expect from a school in the 21st century? A 21st century school should be clean, organized, and with technological facilities that facilitate children's growth. The school cannot be concerned only with technology. Students should grow up learning about environmental care, recycling, and pollution. A cool school, in the student's point of view, is a school where they can play, talk, and have fun, not only learn. In this setup, teachers can create dynamic activities for the students. Teachers should worry about the relationship that exists between students, paying attention to bullying and the exclusion of some. They can make interactive activities between groups. I also hope to arrive at a school in the 21st century and have teachers who know with whom and for whom they are dealing. Teachers who are wise and at the same time fun to be with. Teachers who understand the feelings of children and young people.
Hello, my name is Hannah. I am in the first year of high school, and I study at Don Bosco High School in East Manaus. What I hope for education in the future is that it is open, inclusive, and constructive. For example, I have a friend with a certain degree of autism, and our school is attentive to his needs. I hope that other schools also have a special assistance available to address these needs. A school I want for the future is a school where people are more respectful of each other, that they are considerate of others, and they don't feel superior or inferior to anyone because of who they are. They should be free to be themselves. Regardless of the fact that a person has a low or high standard of living, they should be respected. Nature should also be respected, and we should recognize that nature is a work of God, that He created it for us, and that we should give it great care. This is the kind of school that I want for the future, a school where people respect each other and where they also respect nature. My name is Maria Alice. I am an 8th grade student at Father Rinaldi's Salesian School, and the school I want for the future is one that has green areas and different types of plants so that everyone can be environmentally conscious. I also want everyone to respect each other, regardless of color, gender, race, and religion. I think it is important that children and young people have access to libraries to encourage reading, which is an open door to the world. The Pope challenges us, and we should answer his call. We are challenged to leave our comfort zone, to go out to encounter our neighbor, and to seek an immediate change for the better. The change starts within us, but extends to education. School, besides being a place where conventional subjects are taught, is also a place of formation, where we are prepared for life, where ethical and moral values are attained. And we, as students, want and need an education that favors equal rights and inclusivity, an education that promotes a humanism that advocates solidarity and the care for the common house, where differences are respected and fraternal relationships are strengthened. Don Bosco used to say, God put us in the world for others. The world is inside of us, and if each one of us does our best, we will have a planet that is increasingly renewed. We need to take the initiative to change the present and the future as well. I dream of a school that respects all differences and that not only teachers, subjects, technologies, and sports are present, but a school that teaches us how to fight life's problems. We need an education that respects all differences and breaks the barrier of inequality. I dream of a school that everyone can attend, that everyone has the opportunity to attend, a school that transmits knowledge so that everyone has equal opportunities. I dream of a school with humanized education that teaches people how to have good relationships with each other. Finally, in summary, the school that I dream of is the school that teaches students how to live. Being Salesian students, we have already learned much about ourselves, about equality, and how to build good relationships with others. We have been... Hi, I'm Deborah, a student at the Salesian School, Our Lady of Victory, and today I'm going to briefly tell you what I consider to be an ideal school. An ideal school would be one that listens to the students, that prepares them for the future with classes on the formation of a life project. For some time now, our school has been preparing us to better understand our financial situation and our ethical and moral behavior at school. We also have psychological accompaniment that is extremely important, especially at the present moment that we are living in society. So, for me, an ideal school would be one that is constantly updating to be able to face the current problems of the students and of the teaching professionals who have to be innovative every day in order to enhance the instruction, education that we deserve. For me, the ideal school is the one that encourages students to think about the world around them and to develop a critical sense. At the same time, the classroom should be a space for collective learning, where teachers learn from students and students learn from teachers, thus generating a mutual exchange of knowledge that fosters the creation of a better world. Hi, I am Isabella Mayumi from the Salesian School, Itajaya. The ideal school that I dream of for the future is one where children have fun and are always happy. I dream of a school where they don't have boring teachers, only good ones who are knowledgeable. I would like the school to have 4 different kinds of parks. 2 parks that have trees that the children can climb, because in the school where I study, there is a park with trees that I climb actually on all 4s. And I love all my teachers very much. Teachers in the future I want you to give good lessons to the students. Students are very special people for all teachers.
No futuro, os alunos são uma coisa muito especial para as professoras.
O evento
This event took place in the climate of the culture of encounter, of sharing, of solidarity, and of the protagonism of students and educators. Everyone participated actively through interactions in the chat, the online polls, the digital mural that was created during the event, and especially in the debate rooms, with the participation of more than 500 students from elementary and high schools gathered in simultaneous rooms to share their ideas and proposals to contribute to the Global Compact on educational projects in their school. The 9 rooms where the activity took place simultaneously stood out as one of the highlights of the event, where children, adolescents, and young people had the opportunity to debate, share their ideas, and answer the questions. What can we do so that education helps build a better world for everyone? The moderators of each room organized syntheses which were then shared in the General Assembly. The responses were very positive, intriguing, and fascinating as a result of the empowerment of students' leadership. Here are the suggestions made by the students. An education that respects and believes in the potential and leadership ability of children. An education that promotes human rights and addresses various types of violence, social, moral, and physical. An education focused on economic and environmental sustainability. An education that prioritizes learning that is realistic, committed to practical life experiences. An education that prepares the students to deal with the context of information overload. Promoting an education that is open to innovative ideas and proposals. Promoting literary formation and philosophical and sociological education on human and affective issues. The formation of families focusing on sincere dialogue with the creation of listening spaces and the active participation of families and students in the projects developed by the school. The promotion of an integral ecology that does not only focus on environmental concerns, but also on social, affective, and family issues. Creating a culture of solidarity by promoting projects that are based on the local reality. Developing creativity and innovative classes. The insertion of books, hard copy material in the teaching curriculum. Developing a life project from the early years of elementary education. Edu-communication, education for communication, with improvisation classes, public speaking, suggestions on how to act when facing certain situations. Financial education for children, teenagers, and young adults. The implementation of flexible programs such as sports, art, and technology. The promotion of an education aimed at social transformation that unites theory and practice, political, moral, and ethical education, organizing practical workshops that value local cultures and needs, and also sexuality, affectivity, knowledge of one's own body. The partnership between public and private education for the common good, promoting a conscious and fair access to digital technologies with an edu-communication approach, promoting access to information and art with the aim of forming good citizens who are aware of the world around them. As an outcome of this event, we highlight the local school forums. In light of all the proposals made by the students, the schools held local meetings on the Global Compact on Education, with the participation of all students and educators, in order to elaborate and implement new projects in the light of the Global Compact on Education. We also highlight the e-book, 50 Practices for the Global Compact on Education of the Salesian Schools, which has made possible the organization and circulation of innovative practices that have been developed, in addition to strengthening everyone's commitment to the Global Compact on Education. This year, on the 26th and 27th of October, we had the second Salesian Forum for the Global Compact on Education, giving continuity to the World Alliance for the Reconstruction of a Quality Education for a Better Society. This forum on the Global Compact on Education is making it possible to unite the Salesian Schools of Brazil for the purpose of making education rekindle hope and collaborate in the building of a new world that is more humane and equitable.
Mais humano e equitativo. Muito obrigada.
We thank all the educators, children, and young people who have been involved in these experiences, and new ideas, new practices that we can replicate in our own contexts. We thank you for your participation today, and we meet again tomorrow for a new training space of our preventive system tuned with the Global Educational Pact.